Hi, in this video we will talk about how to use the loops in R. They are also called for loops. So let's get started with creating two simple vectors. So I have two vectors, my vec1 and my vec2. One is a numeric values and the other has text or character values in there. So I can simply loop like this. So I say for I equals 1 to the length of my vec1. So starting from 1 and whatever is the length of my vec1. For example, my vec is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll run 5 times and it'll print the value of I, which will keep on incrementing every time the loops run. And see this curly bracket? It is though some of you might prefer to put it like this, but you would see a problem if I run it like this, though it'll still work. But when I run this, the first line runs because the first line is this and it doesn't know that this is a loop. So then you have to come here and then run it up again. It'll work. But in R, the preferred way is to keep your curly brackets here. Those of you who have been programming in other languages might feel it a bit odd, but this is the way it works in R. So if I run this now, you would notice because the curly bracket starts here, the moment you execute the first line, it automatically knows that this is a function. So this is a very subtle thing. It doesn't really affect your the way you work, but this is the preferred way. Similarly, if I run the other command for my vec2, now to show you the difference between what 1 up to length my vec2 and this means, so you will notice that I've just put the value of my vec in there directly instead of this. So let me run this and you will appreciate the difference. Remember that my vec is this vector which has a, b, c values in there. If I run this, it's not going to print a, b, c. It's going to print 1, 2, and 3 because you are looping, saying the first value of I is 1 and the second time is second, and it's going to go up to the length of my vec, which is 3. So it's printing 1, 2, and 3. I'll run this again to see. So it's printing 1, 2, 3. Now if I wanted to print the actual value which is in there, I'm just looping from 1 to my vec2 and I'm saying print I, and when I do that, you actually get the values printed there as A, B, and C because this is looping the first value and the second value and the third value. This is actually looping the position of that, saying the first line, the second line, and the third line. So this, the value of I is 1, 2, and 3, like a running counter. I hope you found this information clear. Going to a data frame now. So if I use a built-in data set called empty cars, which you might be familiar with, you can just run it and then you see that it contains some data. This is the name of the cars, which is the row names, and these are the columns: mpg, cylinder, displacement, horsepower, etc. So let's do the same thing again. In this case, you're referring, instead of length, you're referring it to the end rows. That means number of rows. So starting from the first row to the last row of the empty cars is going to loop, and then it's going to print the row names of or these values up there. So let's run it. And remember, I'm using the square brackets. So the first one is the row and the second one is the column. So you refer it like you refer any data set like, so I'm saying first row and the first column, first row and the second column, first row and the third column. And then when you're referring to your rows, you can say first row, first column, second row, first column, third row, first column, etc. Okay, so let me run this and you see the first the row names being printed, or the first values being printed. Now how do you do a nested loop? So a nested loop is a loop which contains another loop within the first loop. So for example, if I wanted to reiterate all the values one by one, so I can do it like this. So let's say the first loop is row, and starting from the first row to the last row of empty cars, and then The moment we reach the first row, we'll encounter this loop, the inner loop. And then it says column in 1 to number of columns of empty cars. Then I'm saying print the row and then print the column, and then print the actual value, which is the row and column. So let's run this. So you can see it's actually printing each and every value of the row and the column and its equivalent value in there. So that's one way of doing it. Let's say you want to create a new column in the data frame, df, got a new data column called label. The value of that is NA. So in this case, let's go and run the following command and see what happens when it runs. So we are using the if else command, saying if the horsepower is more than 100, then we're going to call it high, otherwise it will be low. So remember, currently the df has a new label or the data column called label created, which has the value of NA. So let's go and run this command and see the difference. So the value should have been substituted. So go to df. Now we have wherever it's more than 100, it's high. Otherwise, when the values are lower than 100, it's low. So that's how you can loop and then change the values within the loop as well. Now, instead of using the loops for these kind of things, you should actually be using the deployer for that, or a command like this where you can simply mutate. It avoids the loop and it'll be faster than running a loop. So if I say mutate label equals if else, it'll do exactly the same thing. So this is how you can avoid the loops. I hope you found this information useful. Thank you very much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.